Hello everybody, I am Ron Baker. Welcome to this third video in a series of 5 that I'm calling A Wake-Up Call for the World. It is so important as we face this time of challenge, this unprecedented global interruption, that we not just survive, that we not just halt our lives, wait and endure, facing the unknown, unsure how long this will last. If we do this, we will literally just build the fear, the frustration, the charged feelings that we have about being interrupted. This will not serve us well at all. If instead we use this time to become prepared for what our lives will be after. The investments we make in ourselves today will allow us to make more informed choices going forward. So I'm putting these videos out as a way to educate about self. A way to use the interruption where tons of us are quarantined in our homes and our apartments. We have more time on our hands than we typically would. What a perfect opportunity that most of us would not take without this interruption to now evaluate self. Let's evaluate our lives. In video number 1, I talked about beginning to evaluate. What choices have you been in? What choices set you up well? What choices are not necessarily setting you up well? As an example, have you been so busy and distracted and caught up in the habitual routines that you haven't taken time to nurture self, to invest in self, to build and invest a mutual support structure with the people who matter in your life? Those are just 2 of the most obvious things that we can begin to evaluate, but they make a huge difference in our lives. Our relationships with one another are inherent in every part of our lives, even our work. So if we use this time to become educated about self, considering perspectives that are more informed than how we normally move through life, we're going to set ourselves up for an improvement. We can use this time to practice some simple, practical, new tools that will not only get you in touch with self, building a more solid sense of self, but will set you up to invest in the things and the people that you truly value. I don't know if you're like me, but for many years I was just so busy trying to achieve and reach new levels of, I guess, outer recognition in the world, that I wasn't really building something truly meaningful for myself. I was working really hard, but I wasn't clear what I was doing, why I was doing it, and how it was building something of true value. So I'm going to talk a lot about that today. Video number 1, as a review, was an encouragement to evaluate. Please go back and listen to that if you haven't already. Video number 2 talked about self. I don't know about you, I went through 20 years of formal schooling, not one course focused on self, teaching me about me, how to nurture and value me, how to get in touch with my most authentic inner self, my most authentic priorities and values and interests. Nor did it teach me anything about how to create healthy connections and relationships, not only with myself, but with other people. So, video number 2 gave a brief introduction that there are 3 facets of self. We all have these in potential when we're born, but very few of us are taught how to activate them and claim them and to be able to celebrate life in more and more fulfilling ways. Instead, most of us end up very trapped in primitive levels of self, doing our best, and I call this survival consciousness. So because that's relevant in this video, I'm going to give a quick review, but again, I encourage you to go back and listen to those other videos. 3 facets of self: child, adult, soul. If we get all of the nurturing encouragement to claim ourselves in those first years of life, we claim the wonder and the innocence and the trust of a child. We then grow through experience into the potentials of an empowered adult. If we then continue to develop in healthy ways, claiming our capacity to learn and grow, not just once we finish school, but for the rest of our lives, if we continue to invest in self, balancing and valuing self, there's a whole other arena, the soul, consciousness. All 3 of these are present when we are born, but as you know, when you're 6 years old, you're just going through the motions. Today, this moment is all that matters, and you don't know adult perspectives. You don't know what you're working toward and how it will all serve you. This is why we have adults in our lives who are supposed to know how to nurture us and to guide us. So the negotiation of a child who never learned how to value and nurture self and to build the process of self can move into an adult body, but not be an empowered adult consciousness, still ruled by all of the survival choices, all of the things that we didn't learn to value, all the parts of life that we're not clear about. Let's just look at relationships as a quick example. How many of you can name 5 profound relationships in your life around you? 5 relationships that are so connected and communicative and build a growing depth of intimacy, and not just physical intimacy, emotional intimacy and mental intimacy and spiritual and sexual intimacy. How many relationships do you know that continue to grow into more and more and get better and better? I do know of those relationships because of the process that I've been teaching from all that I've learned from what wasn't working well in my life, from how I was trapped in a lot of wounded child habitual, going through the motions, trying to achieve in the outer world, but not building something truly meaningful as an experience. Because of all that I've learned, recognizing how much was not working well, I've been teaching people all over the world for the last 29 years. And so this is why I'm here to encourage the foundation of this. It will make such a profound difference in your life. Just breathing and connecting to your body, which I talked about in video number 2. In the nose and out the mouth in very proactive ways, moving energy through your body. It creates health, a flow of energy, a connected, calm, grounded presence of self. Creates health. It creates all kinds of other potentials as well, but we are in a health scare. We are in a time of interrupting many things, including many people's jobs and finances. And when these things happen, we go into contraction in many ways. This breathing that I taught in video number 2 will help you stay in flow and motion so that you can start to gain more education and grow a ton. So all of that is a review that was flushed out more fully in videos 1 and 2. So now I want to move to a level of self that is rarely spoken about. The soul self. At best, I've mostly heard people talk about the soul as some amorphous spiritual level of self, and it has not been a practical conversation. I hope after today's video, you will consider it a much more informed, practical part of yourself. So, we need this 3-step model in order to get clear. When you are a child, you basically are focused on the joy and pleasure of the moment or the frustration of the moment. As a child, we only want to focus on the things we like to do. We want to eat the things we like to eat. We only want to eat sugar, as an example. The child part of us would only gratify for the rest of our lives if we didn't have adults who already understood some wiser perspectives. So the adult understands that the child needs to eat healthy. The child needs to have a certain amount of sleep in order to set him or herself up well. The child needs to go to school. Do you think a child left on their own devices would go, you know what? It feels like time for me to go to school and to do homework and to study. That's not happening. Except for the adult is a wiser part of self, and the adult says, I know, little one, I know, child of mine, that you are going to benefit tremendously by facing certain challenges. You need to face the challenge to learn how to feed yourself, to tie your shoe, to pick out your clothes, primitive challenges. You need to learn by going to school. You need to learn how to work with other children. Sharing. My toy! No, it's mine! You might be amazed how that piece of the puzzle finds its way into adulthood for most of us, until we look and reevaluate whether that serves us well or not. But a child needs a lot of guidance and nurturing, needs an adult consciousness that says you will grow and claim more of yourself by facing the challenges. You need to learn math because it's going to serve in so many practical ways in your life. You need to learn to read. It's going to serve in so many ways in your life. You need to learn how to share and communicate. You need to learn about yourself. You need to learn how to recognize your physical, emotional, and mental needs as you grow, child of mine. The adult recognizes this, and even though there's typically resistance in the child, no, I don't want to do homework. No, I don't want to face challenge. As we face our physical, emotional, mental challenges, we eventually discover benefits, opportunities that are much more fulfilling than if we had just eaten sugar and hidden out at playtime. I hope you get the overall gist of what I'm trying to point out here. The adult is to the child a guide that sets us up for a more fulfilling, complete life with more options at our fingertips. Well, guess what? The soul is the same thing. Not just some amorphous spiritual perspective of self. This is the wisest part of self that understands the child and the adult at levels that most of us have never been taught. If we begin to understand just the concept of challenge, we are all facing a global challenge with this coronavirus. with the interrupt of our jobs. The child looks at challenge as a pain in the butt. I don't want to do it. I don't want to face it. The child considers it sometimes even a threat to have to face challenge. The adult, on the other hand, begins to learn challenge is what got me into a more evolved part of myself. By facing those challenges in school, by facing the challenges in my relationships, I improve those parts of my life. So the adult begins to understand that at least challenge is serving a purpose. It doesn't mean I may like it, but at least an empowered adult would consider it a vital part of the learning curve of better and better and better, more meaningful lives. Now, I'm not hearing tons of adults talking like this, but if you take time to evaluate your adult life, you will hopefully see some real truth in that. As we move into the soul part of self, this is the wisest part of us that understands challenge is a true opportunity. Challenge is the structure of the dance we have with life, with self, and with one another. Challenge gives us a way to claim more and more and more of self. And the further and the deeper you learn to invest in nurturing ways, the more of you will awaken. Now, how many of you would like to be going through this challenge with no adult perspective at all? Can you imagine being a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old going through this without any adult awareness? Now imagine the same principle. The soul part of us recognizes some deeper truths. I'm not going to any particular religious perspective here, but there is a verse in the Bible that says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Now imagine the adult introducing deeper truths to the child that set the child free to grow and have more options, to be more responsible, to set their lives up well. The deeper truths were way more informed than a wounded child who lives in a very limited experience that becomes their truth. I don't know how. I'm not capable. These were truths when we were 6. To find out, oh, I am capable, is a deeper truth as an adult. The soul is the wisest part of ourselves that understands profound levels of truth, and even truths about challenge. Challenge serves you, the soul would say to me, the adult, and to the child part of me. Challenge serves you. It's an opportunity for you to face something, nurture something, deepen something, expand something. Now let's talk about the challenge we all face. I've been calling it a global interruption of the habitual hamster wheels, if you're a child, of the habitual survival mechanisms of earning money, going to work. You get the point. This interruption is a huge opportunity for all of us to get still, to face self. By being quarantined, we are literally facing ourselves unlike we ever have before. Imagine, if we use this opportunity, this can become the most amazing enhancement for what our lives can become after. We just need education and tools about the things that set us up well, about the things that have been missing. So the soul, imagine the soul of all of us, the highest sacred part of all of us, has set us up to go through this together. How many things in the last decade have interrupted the whole world? How many things have put us on equal footing? This virus transcends gender, race, religion, culture, location, hierarchy of finance. It shows us the humanity. The soul already knows this. The soul understands. We are not served to be stuck in fear that our needs can't be met. Mine. We are not served by not communicating in clear ways to get more evolved and work together as adults. The soul knows all of this already. But how many people have talked to you about the soul in practical ways, have talked to you about the perspectives that you are all equal and sacred? All of you matter. And so the soul is interrupting our lives to give us the opportunity to recognize our shared humanity. The soul has interrupted our habitual to say, are you valuing self, nurturing self, investing in self? Are you nurturing and valuing one another? Because guess what? If we looked at first grade, where we learn to read and to do addition and subtraction, school as an adult is more evolved. It's teaching us how to build careers and how to build structures and buy houses and do family and raise children. The soul has a curriculum awareness of every level of self. And the soul sets up challenges, sets up opportunities to practice responding, learning, and growing. Challenges. And then the soul understands where we are ultimately heading is learning how to love and value, starting with self. Self. If I can't love and value myself, how do I even know what it is to love and value you? For the last 29 years, I've been deepening and exploring and quantifying a curriculum that takes people from wounded child into reclaiming the wonder and the empowerment of child and adult, and even moving into the wiser perspectives of soul consciousness. This level of life is where we focus on the meaning, the value, and the purpose of life. How often have you said over the last 10 years, I want to know what my purpose is. I want to know how to create a more meaningful life. This is beginning to wake up on the planet. Just look at the last 30 years on the planet. We have grown and expanded the adult level of life, the technology and the capacity, more in 30 years than we have in thousands of years prior to that. But guess what that's preparing us for? For soul consciousness to begin to permeate. But we have to interrupt and learn how to value self, how to guide self well, and then how to look for the fact that the soul has set up our curriculum and our challenges throughout. Just like the adult can go, I know what first grade is for, I know what fifth grade is for, even though when we're children going through it, we enter it and we go, I don't know what I'm doing here, and we learn as we go. The adult already knows this about the child. Well, guess what? Your soul already knows what this interruption of the coronavirus is creating the opportunity to create. The opportunity to build. The opportunity to learn. And the soul level of consciousness has created an interrupt unlike anything we have seen. I've been saying for, I don't even know, my clients will tell you for the last 10 to 20 years I've been saying, we are likely in for some global interruptions. The wake-up call is crucial. If the adult did not wake up the child would not choose. We've already established that. The soul wake-up call, I have been watching and waiting, and this is unlike anything we've ever seen. So that's why I thought it was the perfect time to introduce to more of you the perspective, evaluate it. If we choose, we have a choice. We can approach this from child and go into fear and contraction. We can approach it from the adult and just get through it and set ourselves up and stock the kitchen and make sure, and all of those things are important. But the soul will say, wow, this interruption is there so that I will stop the habitual child and adult parts of myself and have the opportunity to say, what do I truly value? Where do I truly invest? Where do I love and nurture myself? Where do I love and nurture the people around me? This time of being separated, where we're being asked to quarantine even from each other, how perfect could that be to interrupt from a soul perspective to say, I bet you'll value the grocery clerk in a different way. The person who stocks the shelves and puts them on the shelf, puts all of the food on the shelves. I bet you'll value the people who do every level of life, from the people who take away our trash every week to the people who do every level of life. Each of us matters and we're interdependent. The soul wants us to learn this. If we're trapped in wounded child, me, mine, no, we're not going to value. We're going to be in survival. This level of meaning, value, and purpose is what the world is heading toward. And we will either use these wake-up calls to move further into that, or we won't. We'll survive at whatever level we decide to land in. I know that most people aren't even aware that there are 3 levels of self like this. And so how great that you're here listening and considering these perspectives. This is why I ask, please, please, please help me reach more people. Help people have the option. Tell people about these videos. There are 2 more coming with more layers and practical tools for getting in touch with these parts of self so that we can consciously prepare and move into soul, practical, meaning, value, and purpose. The sacredness of life, the sacredness of your journey, the sacredness of one another. This is the potential. Our souls have created this unprecedented opportunity called a global challenge. I didn't call it a crisis this time. In video number 1, I said a crisis is something that I feel unprepared to handle. A challenge, on the other hand, is something that will help us grow and learn. Oh, even more, says the soul. A challenge will give you the opportunity to reevaluate. I love that value is in that word. To reevaluate what is important to you. There are so many things I want to share. This video has gotten a little longer than the others have been, but it couldn't be more important. So rather than make this one even longer, I'm going to talk in the next video about some of the other soul perspectives that we can embrace during this time. But now I want to give you one more practical tool. This could not be more important. I've already taught you about breathing, and I know that breathing in this deep, proactive way, filling the belly, is way more energy movement than most people are used to, followed by stillness before you take the next breath. I've suggested 3 breaths 3 times a day. If you're new at this, you don't want to overwhelm your body. Use it to calm, which is why at the end of each breath, you pause for a couple of seconds in stillness with your eyes closed. If you do too much breathing, you can overwhelm your head and you'll feel a little dizzy. I don't want to exacerbate symptoms at this time where people are a bit paranoid about symptoms. Nurture, receive, release, surrender into the stillness. And now, even though I could spend a full hour talking about what I'm going to put in the next 3 minutes, whenever we are challenged and we don't have tools for nurturing self, we go into contraction. When we go into contraction, our feeling energy cannot move. So what happens is we grip here in the solar plexus, right here, and the energy builds up in our lower bodies and it builds up pressure. You may find that your community is doing just fine in the first week of this interrupt. But who knows how many weeks of interrupt we have coming. And if you're not proactively moving the energy and getting some of the charged feelings out, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a second, then it's going to build up and eventually can create anxiety. It can even create panic attacks for people. I'm going to teach you in the next videos how to even deal with anxiety and the people around you who may end up moving toward panic attacks. And it's all just because we're facing the unknown, which has been a part of our lives every single day. I'm not going to go into that today. We're facing the unknown in a very clear way. We need to move emotional energy. On my website, I have courses where I teach people how to do many layers of claiming feelings and moving feelings and releasing feelings. But because I need to give you some help that's more immediate, I'm suggesting that you literally do some releasing of whatever's held here in the column of your body with some sound. I am going to use this cloth so that it will give you some privacy. I'm going to first do it without the cloth and then I'll do it with. So what I'm suggesting is that you take your deep breaths, 3, get calm, and then that you begin to empty out sound, like you're vomiting the sound, so that you literally are emptying. I'm going to turn away from the microphone and go, I'm not just making sound, I'm literally imagining, Then I take a breath, back to calm. When you do this, I want you to imagine a dolphin blowhole in the top of your head. Just imagine opening the top of your head. If you don't, and you start moving a lot of emotional energy, you might give yourself a headache, particularly if you're feeling angry and you need to get that out. You don't want to build a headache. So imagine the top of your head open and make some sound. I suggest you do it with me. So you might want to pause the video at the moment, go get a pillow or a towel, And then you can make sound, and I'm going to show you, even with a washcloth, I'm going to show you how much of the sound is muffled. Instead of ha, it's only you hardly hear it, but it will still help you get out some of this energy. How much should you do? Do a couple of breaths with release of sound, and then just relaxing breath again. In order to make this really clear, I'm going to do it one more time. Do it with me. Release the top of the head just by imagining opening it. Take a breath to make sound. We will build on this in the next 2 videos, but believe me, if you don't wait for the feelings to build up and you go ahead and you just make some breath and sound, a practice you do every day during this time, these are practices I suggest for people throughout their lifetime, not just when they're in challenge. So thank you for listening to this whole video today. It will change your life, and it will prepare you to make the rest of your life a more meaningful experience. It will help you get through this time with much more grace and ease. It will set you up to be in much calmer connections with one another. So I thank you. I will send you the next video in 3 days. Please pass the word. Send the emails that I've sent you. Send them to the people you love and care about. Give them the option to sign up for this 5-video series so they get it in order. We need one another to add our pieces of the puzzle so that we support and value and get through this in much more meaningful ways. Sending lots of love your way. I look forward to seeing you again soon.